All right, so for the first video, I just want to do a real rough overview of Adobe Animate. That's what we are going to be using for the rest of the course in order to make our next projects and such. Okay, so basically, Adobe Animate is part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. It allows you to create graphics, it allows you to create animations, and it allows you to create interactive content. Okay, so those are kind of its three main things. It's sort of a jack of all trades to some degree. Although more and more they've been leaning this more in the direction of animation. It used to even be more robust. Like you could make mobile apps with it even, and you still can, but it's you got to do it in a weird kind of sideways way. That's why you see this Android as an option. So I don't generally suggest doing it on here anymore because they've kind of removed that. Okay, so that being said, let's just get right into it so I can just show you a rough overview of the interface in case you haven't seen it before. If you have seen it before, you can probably just skip this video in general. So we're just going to hit new file. And you'll see that it has these different things, right? Which you can kind of tell this is the stuff that it would make. We're going to be making web content, so go ahead and just click on web. We'll choose very high and change the frame rate to 15. And you'll see that it has HTML5 canvas. Just be aware there's also ActionScript 3. Make sure it's HTML5 canvas. HTML5 canvas basically is for web content. ActionScript 3 is if you're going to be creating animations, or this is that thing where basically back in the day, we used to create interactive and animated content in the web through Flash, if you're familiar with it or not. However, the way that it worked was that it was an attachment to the web browser as a plugin. And so they would run as Swift files that you couldn't really actually see. And so people would use it. It had the potential of being basically a security risk. People could put Trojans and viruses and things like this. HTML5 Canvas is I don't even want to say new standard. It's been a standard for a while now. But basically, it uses the base technology inside of your typical web page, where it's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And all of those, if you look at any web page, you can see all of the code that is on every web page, and nothing is hidden. So it makes it basically more secure. So anyway, just make sure it's HTML5 Canvas, because that's what we're going to be publishing to, is going to be the web. And hit create. Okay, so this is the interface. It's relatively straightforward. Up on the top, you'll see your menu items, and they are kind of what you would typically expect to see, right? So you got your file, import, export, save, all that jazz, edit, copy, paste. But you should know most of those by using your hotkeys. View, one thing you might want to change in view, again, it's got control plus and minus for zooming in and out. You should just know those. You might want to change snapping and turn that off. The snapping by default is pretty strong, meaning it really tries to snap to things when you go to the different pieces, and you might find it frustrating. If you're making something and you're doing, like if we were making a web page and we want it to be very like graphic design and very clean and have everything like on a grid, then snapping would be very useful. So in some regards, that could be really useful. In some regards, not. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Edit Snapping, and I'm just going to turn all of these off. And you have to do that every time. It doesn't save it by default. You would think whatever your setting was is what it'd be, but no, they decide not. Insert, we're not going to really use too much because we're going to be doing things manually. Modify, you'll see we'll use quite a bit in order to make symbols, which are basically just objects, as well as like convert things from bitmaps and things, or raster images really, into vectors and make vectors into bitmaps, that whole thing. Text, you can get most of it you need over here. Commands we don't use. Control is how you would test the movie. But in our case, we'll just hit Control Enter, and that will automatically pop up with the browser. So you don't really need that either. Debug, we're not going to use. Now, window, you might find useful. We are going to be using, if for some reason you screw things up, and I do this, I'm like, oh, my properties panel is messed up. Just like all the other Adobe products, you can quickly go into Windows, go to Workspace, make sure you're on Essentials. I like to use Essentials because that's the default. And that way, what I see is what you see, but they do have other options here that they're just different layouts. And you can choose, and you can make your own if you want. You just want to go to Reset Essentials, and that will, and you hit yes, and that will reset it to the default state. So if for some reason something gets messed up, just go Window, Workspace, Reset Essentials. Okay. After that, you will see on the left are the tools. I'm not going to go into them right now, but basically these are just the tools that you can interact with the things that you have on the stage here. Okay, so there's a bunch right here, and just be aware when you hold them down, they do have the ones with little knucks there. They do have extra tools underneath them, just like other Adobe products. There's also hidden ones. If you click these ellipse, you'll see more tools here. So for some reason, I have a tool over here and it's not in yours. Just go over here and you'll see that they are in there. Okay. Some of them, like these, means they're not available in the canvas, or they're not available because of your video card. So if you see weird little things, it means you can't use them. Just be aware that's why. Okay, so I'm just going to click it back off. Yada, yada, yada. Right, so you can see that's what those are. This is a vector-based program, which means if you look, you can see this is the fill shape, this is the stroke. So that's also there. All right, this is, I already alluded to it, the stage. Basically, this is what the person, the viewer will see. So if for some reason I do have an object, see how it's off stage. When I go to preview this, I'm just going to hit Control Enter, Command Enter if you're on a PC. You will see, it went over here, that it's cut off because it's only going to show what's inside of that box. Okay, so just be aware that that's how the program works. All right. So this is the stage. You can navigate, space bar. You can also middle mouse button click. If you hold Control and scroll in, or I don't know if it's Command on a Mac. I think it might still be Control. I don't know. That will scroll in. Obviously, Control plus and minus also work. What's handy often is to just do fit in window, and that will just maximize this to the size. But that's the stage. If I go down to timeline, this is the timeline, just like you would see in other animation software. Basically, these are, see, I don't have any, there's only one thing on one frame, but this is the timeline. So you can see 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, yada, yada, yada. And it's every 15 frames because we made it 15 frames per second, which you can see right here. And the way this works, it will have multiple layers, and you put all your objects on layers. It's very similar, really, to After Effects if you have any familiarity with that. But this is the timeline. You have a little play button and all that. That's what you'll see. Okay, so you have layers. Your layers show up here, and your timeline's right here. All right. Output basically is when you go to test it and do other things. Anything that deals with coding, if you output to the console, it will show up here. Or if there's an error or something, you'll see it in output. For the most part, we're not going to have to do too much with that. Then on the right, you will see the panels. Now, these panels can be any number of things. You can see there's other panels here as well. You can also get to window and get to all the panels here also. But by default, what you're going to see is that there's a properties, a library, and assets. And sometimes if you click on, so that's what you'll see. Assets we're not really going to use. Library, you will see that as we bring things in, like if we bring in pictures, like we import a picture or we import sound or whatever, and as we make objects, they will show up in the library. It's very similar to a nonlinear editor like Premiere or After Effects. This is basically our bucket of all the stuff that we have to work with will be inside this library. It's not the same library that you usually see when you go into Adobe Creative Cloud and you have your libraries. That's not what this is. You would actually do that more through the assets. Okay. Properties is a little bit more important because that will show you the properties of whatever is selected or whatever tool you have. So notice right now it says doc. That's because I have nothing selected. So it's showing me the properties of the document that I'm in. In this case, it's showing me the stage. So I can actually change the stage size still if I wanted to, even though we already set it up there. I can change the frame rate. I can change the background color, make it like mid-gray, right? Yada, yada, yada. That's what this is for. Now, if I select a tool over here, let's go over here. And I guess, there we go. Select this tool. You'll see it'll give me the settings for, I got the rectangle tool here. It'll give me the settings for the tool. I can change the fill. I can change the stroke size, all that stuff, okay? So as I grab stuff over here, you will see that it will, the tool will pop up, okay? Now, if for some reason this thing was an object, you can ignore this for now. You'll see object, and it'll give me the options for the object. And there's also for the frame. So I can attach things to the frames as well, okay? So basically the property just handles all of those things. It's the primary thing we're going to be using. We really don't use really any of the rest of these. You might use the color palette, but there's other ways to get to that. But just so you are aware, that's what those are. Oh, notice that I made this an object. And now if I go to the library, you can see here's this object. I made it into a symbol. That's what their objects are called. Notice that it says symbol 1. I can actually delete this, and I can just pull this off. And I can pull as many of these as I want. Okay. And that's all because it's now in my library because I made it like an object. All right. And yeah, and this works a lot by nesting things inside of each other. So in essence, the stage is sort of an object, has its own timeline. But watch, if I go inside of this object, it says scene, then simple one. I'm now inside of this object. Notice everything, all the other ones grayed out. And if I were to change this, the other ones will change as well. So any changes I make, the other ones will also do. I'm just going to click back to go back to the scene because they are all derived from the same object. So you change one, they all change. And inside of this one, it has its own timeline. So just so you are aware. And that's a rough overview of how this works. We're not going to get into all the nitty gritties. This week, we're just going to be concentrating on the graphics, but I just wanted to give a general idea of how this works. So you can make your graphics inside of here. You can also make your graphics outside of here. But its primary focus is, to create some graphics, but also animation and interactivity. And it has some unique ways of doing that will be pretty different than a lot of the other software inside the Adobe suite.